right.
Hark now, mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm so steer. Gather round the partnership's deck.
Scripts command.
Tales from the leaders of the partnership train. So we chant by the podcast glow. Through veritable seas to boxes flow. Dar dive. Hoist the sails.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the partnership. It's been a while since we've done one of these. There's been so much happening in the market, so I was deep in the sauce trying to figure out what is happening in AI partnerships and GTM for SaaS in general. But I'm so excited for this episode today because we have Jay Singh here, who's the CEO of Casper Studio, which is an AI studio. And so Jay is hands-on implementing AI for some of the biggest companies in the world. And I want to learn all about, what it means to be an AI systems integrator, what the playbook is that you developed, and also how you got into it. Because, Jay and I, we go back a couple of years now. Jay was at LinkedIn and BD, and so that's how we met each other. But you kind of jumped on this AI bandwagon like 3 years ago already, and you've been doing this for 3 years. And, a lot of people who are using AI tools only started really diving into them in the last couple of months. So you've kind of seen this whole thing play out. So what made you jump into, this AI studio journey 3 years ago when you were still at LinkedIn?
Yeah, the way we met, I think, is pertinent to maybe my perspective on this. Is I've always just been interested in new technology. I think as a technology industry, we thought that new tech after cloud was going to be Web3. We all jumped in. I know you and I were chatting a lot about that in 2020, 2021, and I think that was just because we were looking for what is that next opportunity. We're all young in our careers. We want to be able to identify what that next thing is, so we can learn about it, get up to speed, and then be able to communicate it to others to provide value to them, and maybe even update our own career path accordingly. And so I've always just been interested in that. I've also just always been interested in learning something new and then being able to explain it really simply to people. I think a lot of folks in our circles and high academia and big tech companies and everybody kind of overcomplicates things sometimes a little bit too much. And I've always just enjoyed getting the download and then being able to explain it to friends, explain it to colleagues really simply. That was how a lot of this Web3 type of thinking started. I was helping LinkedIn for a second explore its opportunity in Web3, and it, through a bunch of different lenses, actually turned into our verification work stream, which now is a big success, and originally started from that kind of interesting thesis. And so there was a little bit of success that kind of happened there of go figure out this new thing. We don't really understand it. Go speak with the right people, and then just bubble up your insights to us to help us guide our decision making, which is BD in a nutshell. And so while that was happening, AI started to also kind of pick up in the summer of 22, and so was kind of the new tech kid at LinkedIn to go figure something out, go talk to these people, and then come back and tell us what its impact is. And that was the original kind of excitement around AI in the summer of 22. It was actually through a really awesome opportunity within LinkedIn. And then from there, just realized I wanted to kind of, take a step off, maybe be able to help other businesses to be able to think about these things as well. And I was at LinkedIn for 5.5 years, nothing but great things to say about the people, the organization. Thought it was time to go try something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that's a whole different episode in itself, is the LinkedIn verification partnership, because that's obviously used by millions of people now, and they're verifying that they're real people, which is more important now than ever, right? And so that is something we're gonna say for another time. But yeah, it's so interesting because you were the AI or the new tech kid, you just said, at LinkedIn, right? And I feel now that's basically your job now. It's being the new tech guy who's flying around the country, right? You're in the middle of the Midwest right now as well. So you're flying around the country and basically educating now everybody on AI, not just the LinkedIn team. So I would be curious, what made you decided you wanted to take the leap, and how did you get your AI studio off the ground?
Yeah, so while this was going on at LinkedIn, I kind of had a curiosity to see if we can maybe ship something with a couple friends off the side of our desk, using LLMs. This was in November 2022. At the time, like there was this new product called ChatGPT that had launched. We had been kind of messing around with the APIs like a few weeks even before that happened, and that first product that we built came from an insight that us as BD professionals like needed help with, which was synthesizing like new information and be able to figure out the so what so that I can guide product decisions, business decisions internally. And so a big portion of that was just synthesizing and reading a ton of information. So if something new happens in your industry, you want to, your CEO is like, what does this mean for us? And so the first product that we built just off the side of our desk outside of LinkedIn was a Chrome extension that helped users to be able to just summarize content really easily using LLMs. Like I think it was GPT 3.5, probably GPT 3 actually in the beginning. And that product ended up getting to 20,000 users and 1,000 daily active users within like 3 months. There was for the first few years of AI tools, there was always these kind of Twitter people that would say these Chrome extensions are going to change your life. we were like number 7 consistently, and just grew totally organically. And at the time we had been thinking a lot about Web3 and like looking at like the adoption of a lot of the technologies in that space, and still thinking that it was going to be like a really big kind of like push. But then we had shipped something in 3 weeks, and the usage on that Chrome extension was more than like decently large, dApps. And, I was like, wait a second, I think this actually might be something is like the new wave. And so that was the original kind of, wow, this is pretty interesting. And then that actually went into our first customer, where we're like, we kind of know how to use this stuff. Like everybody's trying to figure it out at the same time. We've done it once before. If we can help anybody implement this in their business or even build an AI product, like let us know. And it was just doing that for like a couple months, which ended up finding our first customer. So I'll pause there, but that was just like the early days of it.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I think that's so interesting, right? Because it points towards something really important, is like the willingness to tinker and like play around with like what's possible. Because every new model release, there's a bunch of use cases that were unlocked, but it takes a moment for people to figure out like what actually got unlocked, right? And so now over the last 3 years, there's been so much compounding where all these use cases have been unlocked, but people still kind of like have like a vague impression of like, AI being the same as like ChatGPT was 3 years ago. So maybe let's fast forward like 3 years from now, like the first Chrome extension to what is like a project you guys have been implementing in the, in the last couple of months or year?
Yeah. So just like, I'd left LinkedIn in the beginning of 2024. First year, we're just trying to kind of figure it out, like helping whomever to be able to build something in AI. Last year was the first year where I felt like we started to kick off more like longer term, like kind of traditional, like, maybe services types engagements that have still kind of, some of them have actually, they're still our customers today. The 3 that I'll maybe talk about it, we can kind of get into them. And we have almost 20 clients at this point, but 3 that I'll mention. One is a $2 billion AUM hedge fund that's based in Manhattan. We've been automating their corporate access workflows and effectively are just their forward deployed, product manager engineers. And we're just a part of their team now. And we've kind of re-architected how they run their business and using AI. And it started small, and it's kind of compounded in a really interesting way. And it's saved them a ton of time. They've been able to raise like an additional like set of funding from LPs because they're like, wow, this is a pretty sophisticated use of AI we haven't really seen from a lot of fund managers. So there's like a whole like set of stories with that. That we can kind of get into, and that's helped us get more into financial services. The second one was we ended up working on a Stranger Things Netflix kind of Doritos collaboration for the launch of season 5. So you got hedge funds, you got a marketing.
Yeah, that one's got partnerships written all over it. It's like Doritos, Stranger Things, Netflix, Casper Studio.
Totally, yeah. I mean, how it came together was like really like BD driven. And that was fun. That ended up, it was a voice activation on a Doritos bag where you can call a number, and that experience on the other side of the line is a 1-800 hotline experience. And you can talk to 80s themed characters and chip in for the city of Hawkins if anybody's a Stranger Things fan. And so that they expected that to get maybe like 50 to 100,000 calls. Ended up getting 400, almost 500,000 calls on it. There was almost 80,000 kind of messages of hope that were left from fans, and it ended up becoming like a huge success, like the vendor that enables both that experience and ChatGPT, so that this was the second most used voice AI consumer experience behind advanced voice mode on ChatGPT. I don't know if it's still the same, but I hope it's not the same. You would hope that there's some other kind of actual, applications that are consistent that are being used to that. But yeah, it's you got the enterprise adoption stuff here. You got people calling a Doritos bag here. But it was really fun to get like high production level AI system working, no bugs, etc. So
Yeah,
that was the second one. I'll pause there for a second.
amazing. Yeah, so funny, people calling a Doritos bag. But I one thing I find really disarming about you, because like as preparation for this podcast, I like listen to a bunch of other podcasts you've done, and like in some of them you literally sit down people and then describe like, here's how you build a voice app, right? And so you're describing like, hey, this is actually really accessible, anybody should be building voice apps right now. And then you go out and build a voice app for like Stranger Things and Netflix and so forth as well, where any listener would assume, hey, you just spilled the beans, you just showed how it's done, why wouldn't Netflix just go out and build this themselves, right? And so I think that's really interesting, because that's like the friction that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, for the most part, transparency ends up leading to opportunity. And I think because people trust you more, and there's so much noise and hype and anxiety around AI today, that a lot of people could do this. We're literally showing people how you could do it. But these larger organizations, even smaller organizations, want to work with people that they trust. And so I think the more vulnerable, the more transparent you are, whether that's both from a professional lens or a personal lens, the more you help increase trust. And then if you have the right team and you're up to speed on all the new technology, then it makes it easier to be able to work with. And so I think that's, again, it's like maybe it's overly simplified, but we've heard from our clients, we can go work with these other companies. You have the right technical capability, but like that's going to become a commodity over time. Everybody's going to get up to speed. But I think I think how we keep growing the business is because people just like working with us, and we're good people, and we're honest and transparent. And that's an important part of like how I'm trying to drive like the culture of our company, especially those that are more client facing. But that's kind of, it's a very simple maybe mental model around it, but it's been helping us.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely something there, right? Because like ultimately, it's easy to prototype right now. Like anybody could like spin up like a voice agent or something like that in a couple of minutes, right? But actually getting it production ready and making sure it's deliverable and so forth will take a lot of time, where your expertise of doing this for like several years really comes in handy, because you know what to look out for and so forth. And so, this project probably had like a strict deadline, and the question is like, can you deliver on time or not? And I think that is probably where the opportunity also lies, right?
Yeah, totally.
One thing that you have, like for the AI implementation, you have a framework called singles and doubles. And I would love to just dive in there and it's like, how do you, apply that framework when you go out to a company and like, understand where you want to apply AI in their business?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations are like, I guess this comes from like an insight around maybe last year at maybe Q3 or Q4, I forget, but MIT kind of came out with this big stat of 95% of enterprise AI adoptions are failing. You can kind of debate like the claim of it. Let's assume that that's right. I think it's because if you do assume it's right, I think it's because like a lot of companies are kind of going for the home runs right off the bat. Like they're coming in and they're saying like, we have to completely re-architect our entire business. Disruption is here. Like we're done for. And I think you have to earn the right to get there. And you earn the right to get there by just starting small. So hitting the singles and doubles, just getting started, just like building a couple automations, like, rolling out a few of these tools to get your team to get up to speed. So starting small, I think, has been helpful as a way to recommend stuff to clients to just get the ball rolling. It's also been helpful for our business model to share to clients to say, hey, you don't need to sign us up for like a 12-month commitment, 6-month commitment. Just like partner with us for a month, see how we do. I think we can help. And then from there, we've seen our churn our churn is pretty low, because there's just a lot of work to do. And we get in the door because we're just here to help. And then we're on month-to-month contracts. If you want to cut us for whatever reason, you can. And so I think the singles and doubles approach is how we actually help companies that like think about how to start with AI, but also it's how we think about how to help our customers too in our business model.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, because it's like it's really about that. Like we see this a lot with our clients as well. Like if you're trying to take too big of a swing and like try to change everything in one go, it wouldn't work because there are probably bits of the workflow that were important or the AI can't handle as much. And then you're like, well, it doesn't work. Like the end result doesn't work. But actually, maybe AI does small pieces of the workflow pretty well. And so you can still accelerate the workflow. You can still change the way you're doing business, but by unlocking incremental wins with every new model release versus all at one go.
And I think what I'd update to that singles and doubles approach is that it's the place to start, but at a certain point you need to reframe your perspective to then start thinking about what are the home runs. But if you come out and you try to swing right off the bat, like you'll probably just pull your back or something. To say with the baseball analogy, but like you have to build the confidence up, like get warmed up, and then you'll look up after 6 months and say, wow, actually we've actually changed a lot of our workflows. Like maybe let's start some level of discovery again, see where the new technology is today, and then maybe like re-architect, like maybe now it's time to go for some level of a home run. So it gets more complicated, it gets more nuanced, but I think just to get started, don't go and get a 12-month long procurement cycle or like a contract or whatever. Like you getting started, I think is still a lot where a lot of people are not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting as well with the implementation side of things, right? Because ultimately, you come in, you analyze a business, you probably have these big goals that you can hit, right? Like you probably see like a big fish where you're like, okay, this is what we could land, but you need to teach people like how to get there. Like they are living a lot of customers probably live like 2 years in the past compared to somebody who is at the very cutting edge using these models all the time. And so you need to kind of chart the path between 2 years from ago and now, because if you don't chart that path, they feel left behind, and then people get scared, and then the change management aspect of this becomes really, really difficult.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's interesting, right? Like I saw a stat from Boston Consulting Group. It was 10% is the algorithms, like the models, 20% is like the framing and the harness around the models and all the implementation. And then 70% are the processes and the people, right? And 100%. So I wonder if you have a approach to show people hey, this is actually something that can be beneficial for you in your role versus, is threatening or scary, right? Because I do think that outside of the valley, in the valley, everybody's hyped about AI, but I do think outside of the valley, the folks are a lot more hesitant to adopt it.
I think it goes back to these first few ideas here of just explain things simply and relax. And I think trying to almost be like a good friend to help them. Okay, let's run some level of discovery. What we'll do is the first 2 to 4 weeks, we'll meet their executive team. We'll send out a voice agent to be able to interview all the other employees of their team or the organization. And then we'll kind of run our own agents to be able to synthesize all that and then give a recommendation. And that'll kind of say okay, here's what I heard from a top level priority perspective. Here's what your team is saying, and here's how they're using this stuff already. Let's think about where to be able to kick off. And I think either as that engagement is going on, or maybe right after we kind of move from that phase to the next phase, I think it's important for the executive team to create the right psychological safety in the organization to make sure that we're coming in here not necessarily trying to replace jobs, which needs to be hit on directly, because I think sometimes executives are I don't know, they're maybe or whatever, I don't think they really care about that. My team is my team, we're good to go. But everybody is nervous about this stuff. You're seeing some pretty serious layoffs starting to happen. Even yesterday with Block and Jack Dorsey's note was pretty crazy. And so it's important to kind of create the right psychological safety right off the bat to say, we even work with the CEOs to figure out the messaging around this. Because you can't also say no jobs are going to be lost. You can't say that every job is. You have to figure out the right way to kind of get them excited about AI. And I think the synthesis, the voice agent, the conversations, get their ideas out, and they feel they're more in control over what's going on as well as an organization. And that kind of helps them figure out what they can do. You can give them more agency, and then they can start to become champions in the organization. So yeah, maybe a little bit diverse from your original question, but those are some things that are helpful to kind of get started and make people feel it's not about taking their jobs. It's just about helping them reduce like the stuff that is just like really annoying to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we see at Opus Clip as well. Like, we come into teams and like we have helped them work, edit, update their workflows around video editing, right? And the first fear is always like, is this going to take my job? But if you actually engage with the technology and understand where the limitations are, you will realize pretty quickly, like, this can alleviate all the schlep. Like in our case, it's the like reframing and like putting captions and like all those things, right? Like the boring part. But then the part which is like more interesting, like this creative storytelling and stuff like that, those things will not going to be replaced, right? The AI can't do it because it can't do authentic storytelling the same way a professional editor can, right? And I think it's really important to engage with the technology because it can be very scary on the surface, but if somebody's been deep in the sauce for multiple months, you kind of come out on the other side and just say like, actually, there are serious limitations here that the technology just can't deliver on right now. So there's still the need for a person.
Yeah, like I struggle to now say anything around AI that says like it can't do that. And so I try not to even like enter into that type of conversation. I think instead my reframe is that if you use these things, you're likely going to get a lot of energy from your day-to-day because you've automated a lot of the other pieces. And if you have excitement around your work and you like what you do, like this is like people really are having a great time like in the day-to-day. You can share a story where you told me last week around like how much you love like just using these tools yourself, right? Like I mean but I think like I'm trying to kind of like focus more like after we frame up the ROI for executives, etc., but for the team it's like this is like hopefully going to give you so much more energy back from your day-to-day and then hopefully also get you even additional energy because you just enjoy doing this work. And if you don't enjoy doing this work and you're like not really willing to invest in the new skill development here, then your job and like things are in trouble. But there's a big opportunity to actually just lean in and then find a lot of enjoyment from it. You can then learn even more. You can learn even faster. You can share even faster, and then that like creates so much opportunity. I mean, that's been the story for us, like in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We talked about our shared love for Claude Code quite a bit. Like I've resulted to like waking up really early in the morning, like 5 or 6 a.m. and like doing a couple of hours of Claude Code before I even get started with my work, just because I'm so excited about it. But that's why it's so important to engage, right? Because I built all these workflows. I enabled our entire team on Claude Code as well. So our entire team is like vibe coding stuff now. And it's really interesting to see what people come up with because they come up with things that I would have never even thought of, right? But what you end up with is like a bunch of N8N workflows, a bunch of Claude automations and skills, and then a GitHub repo where they're all hosted. But then bringing them into production is this big issue, right? Like, I think there are two gaps. Like, one is the imagination gap where you even need to figure out what you want to build, right? And I think some people are like really forward and they can figure it out. And like, that's the piece where, there's a lot of education needed, but people also figure it out. The production gap is the thing which I'm most worried about. Because that's where, you have all these ideas and like you can prototype them and they look really good, but I'm making it safe, having the right access controls, covering edge cases. Those are the things where you want to bring in an expert because there's just a lot that can go wrong as well, especially if a tool has like access to your internal systems, right?
Yeah, the way that we've done this, so our hedge fund client, it feels like our partnership with them has like shown us the way because they're so sophisticated and some of the smartest people I've ever worked with, and they're really pushing us to keep pushing the bounds in terms of like how to best engage with AI. And with them, like their whole team is up to speed with Claude Code, right? But the way that we've been working together is that there's this idea of like a playground, and like the playground is like available to the team, and like they're just like cooking, they're doing whatever they want, like they're showing the team, like they're having fun, like this is going to be really effective. And then there's like some like kind of you're trying to measure if the things from the playground have like gone viral internally, and if people are like, hey, give me that skill, give me that automation, give me that thing, like I want to use that, and we're just observing that, and you're like, great, like this morning email automation that like Jeff made is everybody wants to use it, then our team will come and look at that amongst like the other stuff that we already have on our roadmap, and then we'll try to productionize it. We'll probably rebuild it from scratch. We'll probably put in the right security measures in place to make sure that the team is using it properly. But it's important. Yeah. It's important to still maintain that because that's like it could be a key piece to the roadmap. But also like, we can kind of come in and be able to kind of transition it and make it more production ready. So I think you need to have both. Like see what bubbles up for folks and then like roll it out across everybody else.
Yeah, I love that. It's like instead of like prototyping, or instead of discussing an idea, you just prototype the idea, get it out in front of the market, and then like see like are people adopting this internally, and if they are, then we can create a real product around it, right?
That's why I think like enterprise procurement is like so broken at the moment. And I think it's because we are still viewing tools, these AI tools, as products, which they are, but they're moving from a product to more of like an idea. Like if you were to think about me as a BD person at LinkedIn, a good percentage of my job was just meeting with founders, executives, like community leaders, and then bringing their ideas into the organization and then mapping it to how we think about the world and then giving a recommendation to how to drive the business. Now these tools are becoming so simple to build for others and for ourselves that there needs to be some middle ground in terms of the implementation of those new tools to not just put them through like this long-term cycle. Could you imagine if you had needed to put an idea through a 6 to 12 month procurement cycle before anybody even socialized it? That makes no sense, right? And so there needs to be a different mental model here of how to kind of bring in these tools, which are effectively now becoming like as easy to create as ideas, fast, bring it in, implement it, test it, and then like again go through the right production procurement cycle to roll out, because that's why these bigger companies are losing. It's not that complicated. They're just not, they don't have, their team cannot access these new tools fast enough. And so they can't learn fast enough and they can't start building fast enough. That's really that it just comes down to that as like one key point of it.
I do think so. It's so fascinating to see that like the long procurement cycles are actually hindering adoption of AI in like a really big way right now, because we are seeing this right now where like sometimes it takes 6 months just to go for procurement. So there's obviously the POC and whatever in advance, but then even if the decision is made, we want to adopt this, it takes forever to get through because there's so many like hindrances and legal and all these things. So I'm curious, you work with like Fortune 500 companies, right? How do you get in? Like, how do you make sure that like you're part of the team that is in charge of implementing at those big hedge funds and so forth as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like some corporate security posture pieces that are important to get it right off the bat. Like the products that we build, the service that we offer, like is SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. Like we've gone through our process there. Like the products that we were building in healthcare are like HIPAA compliant. So you have to go through like those security postures, and it's helpful to get plugged into some of these enterprise customers earlier, because then they push you to like get that stuff done. So that's been helpful. More, I think and then the other two elements of it is like more of like a partnership strategy, and the third one is maybe more oriented around just like our makeup as people. Like I'll start with the third one. Like we're all enterprise-y people. We all of the folks on our team have all worked at these big companies. We understand how to navigate these bigger organizations, and we've been doing it in our careers as well. And so we can kind of like mix the early stage startup vibe and like learning about all these like automations and like really cooking on Claude Code automations and just moving, and be able to communicate effectively to a procurement person at a company and make sure that we're finding the line there. So it's like a skill thing there too, which people don't touch on. It's important to just know how to do that.
And
yeah, go for it.
And also the partner network, right? Like having access to like people who are already working with these Fortune 500 companies, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you know it best. It's like being a BD person is like awesome because your network is so large, because it has to be for your job. Like you literally need to meet a bunch of smart people at different companies to like be successful with your work. So it's amazing. I think the other piece as well is that it's often hard to go direct to a Fortune 1000, and we just talked about why the procurement cycles are long. But what's been helpful is actually becoming a subcontractor through their agency or consulting firm of record, and then kind of partnering up and then moving to that enterprise. So with Netflix, like that was not a direct to Netflix. That was through Omnicom and GSP as a marketing agency. They hired us, and then we worked together to be able to solve that problem for Netflix. At the end of the day, it's like the money's flowing through the bigger enterprise. The case studies are still coming from the bigger enterprise. It's just like this like procurement piece is done through the actual agency. Our other larger companies, like our customers in the health insurance space, they've been working with another consulting firm for the past 30 years, and we've just been hired by them, and now we'll collectively go work with that enterprise. And so I think that's actually becoming more of a go-to-market strategy for us, where we're trying to find more of these like legacy, like important like firms that have been built up a ton of trust with these enterprises, and we're just like trying to be like their AI resource. And so that's been helpful to kind of like get plugged into these bigger companies, is going through the engagements that they already have with like existing consulting firms.
I find this so interesting because you want to make sure that you also manage, fears on, for example, the existing agency side, right? So you want to make sure that like the existing agencies that they already work with don't feel like intimidated by, somebody else coming in and like potentially competing for the same deals, right? And so I think this is a really smart way of like getting in, while the while the existing agency is still kind of like in control, or like has that relationship and like can manage expectations and so forth as well. And you can learn from them probably quite a bit as well, right? It's no small feat rolling out an activation with Netflix like that.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I used to joke about this internally, but I'm like more serious about it now externally. When people would ask about like who our competitors are, and I would just kind of joke and say, no one. Like show me a competitor and I'll tell you how we can help them. And I think that's coming from like a really big like BD perspective. And now it's honestly become a competitive advantage because we're not, again, it goes back to transparency, it goes back to just being like high trust people. I think we can honestly help a ton of folks. We don't necessarily need to compete with anybody. Now that might change in like 3 years as the market matures, like, there's more, there's more players in the space. You need to be a little bit more specific. You need to make the right choices in the partners you work with. You can't work with everybody like that for sure. But I think by that point, we've all been very successful then, because now we're like, market leaders and we're big. And like, now we got to figure that out. And you see that in tech companies, like your biggest competitor is also your biggest customer, is also your biggest partner. It happens often. And so I think, again, it was a very helpful training ground, being in BD at a big tech company to learn about these dynamics. And we're just rolling that perspective out for our partners, our customers.
That mindset is so crucial. Because I think right now there's a lot of panic in the market and people are trying to figure out like, what does this all mean for me? And most people will try to lock down information, try not to share, right? At the same time, the people who are coming in with this enlightened approach of like, hey, there is no competition right now. We're all figuring this out together. We can all make money here because the value created is so large that there's actually a lot of pieces of the pie for like a lot of different players. Yeah. In this.
Exactly.
And I think that's why like this approach is like the winning strategy right now. Jay, we are hitting up on time, but I do want to ask you, like, for anyone who's like curious about getting started with AI, or like curious about like implementing AI as part of their internal workflows or for customer projects as well, like what would you recommend? Like how would you recommend them to get started, and when is the right time to get somebody like a Casper Studio involved?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think like most people right now, in terms of like the tooling first, and I'll get into like maybe like the makeup of the customers and why they choose us, when they choose us. I think the tooling right now, if I'm just like a person that's just trying to learn more about new technology, like you got to get into Claude, and you got to get into Claude Cowork, you got to get into Claude Code, like Claude Code. And I think as someone who's like a BD salesperson, it was kind of scary to get into some of these tools, especially like Claude Code. But again, as you know, it's just like so powerful. And quickly you can go from, I don't know what to do, I'm not really sure how to play in this like new world, to, oh, I actually know how to use these tools, to, oh, like, why don't I go help my friend who has a business and maybe I can implement some stuff for them, to now you could be building a business that's like doing this type of stuff. That is literally our story, right? It's not overly complicated. It's just like learning the new thing, trying to explain it to people, and then rolling it out for them, and then putting in the right like security enterprise posture to do so. But that's what it's coming down to. And I think any individual can take control and like do that as well. And then if we're hiring a ton at the moment as well. So if anybody's interested in like who's been kind of doing this type of work and they want to be a PM, they want to be an engineer and like get deployed into these enterprises, like, yeah, hit me up. In terms of the types of customers that we can work with, frankly, it's like a lot. And like most people could use like some quick like external perspective in terms of what the heck is going on. And now, because we've worked with like quite a broad swath of industries and companies, and we're still early, but that'll continue to increase over the course of the next like couple of years. We can probably help in some way, even if that help is just like do that, use this, like try that. or if it's actually like just jump in, like help us like, identify like what to automate, when to automate it, etc. And then can you just actually like be that team to go do so, because it's hard to train up people internally to do that right now. And so I think it's like many stages of companies we can work with on that journey. We try to come in to do some level of discovery first to make sure that they're kind of focused on the right things. And so, yeah, at least what we're seeing on the ground, like, that could be any type of business at the moment, a large enterprise, like a growth stage startup, like a health system, everybody's trying to figure this out together, really at the same time. And most people have not yet. So,
yeah.
And that's okay.
That's what makes this so exciting, right? Because there's so much opportunity out there right now in every single industry, and somebody needs to go out and implement the systems, right? It's not going to be, Google and Anthropic and everybody themselves, because they don't have the resources. They don't have the time or manpower to go to every single company. So somebody has to go out and implement, and Casper Studios is the very forefront of that. So that's pretty exciting to see, man. Last question before we wrap it up. Where do you go to learn? Like, you're obviously like somebody who stays up to date. Like, is there a resource that you guys create, or like a resource that you can point people to who want to learn more about like just AI and stay up to date?
Yeah, I think we can do a better job at, our whole team creates LinkedIn content. It's like hilarious to see as like the LinkedIn guy. I'm like so proud.
And it's really good.
I'm so proud.
It's great stuff. Yeah.
But like we need to kind of like, I need to have a way to collect all that and like put it somewhere and like put it on our website so people can actually like digest it in a better way whenever they want to. So we need to do more elements of that. Because my answer is going to be like, I try not to actually like learn from, like, I don't try to read anybody's like stuff anymore, because like most, I can see that they haven't actually like implemented this stuff yet. It's very clear. There's maybe one writer that I like. His name is Sanjeet Paul Chowdhury, and he's been thinking really interestingly about AI implementation. But frankly, it's like I try to just like remove anything from Twitter and LinkedIn and in email as like my source of truth. My source of truth is my customer. I'm like working with them. I'm understanding like what they need, and like I'm learning, and then we're trying to share that as much as we can. And then my team and like how they're thinking about deploying stuff to customers. Like it's just, we have these Slack channels that are just like popping off with like all the new stuff and all, and like they're so excited. We're all a bunch of nerds that love this stuff. And so I learn like from our team. I learn from our customers. But it's kind of a bad answer, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's hard to trust like outside sources outside of that. Because I can tell that they haven't really done much of the work itself.
Right now is not the time to read, is what I'm hearing. Right now is the time to just get your hands dirty and build. So if you don't have time, wake up at 5 a.m. and get started, because there's so much exciting stuff happening.
Totally.
Jay, this was a great show. I really appreciate you coming on. So much to talk about, like so much to learn from you, and like this few years journey of like implementing AI for customers. Where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Jay Singh, Casper Studios on there. And then if you want to email me, I'm jay@casperstudios.xyz, soon to be.com. We're transitioning.
Moving up in the world.
Yeah, we're doing
nice. I appreciate it. And for everybody who watched this live, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us live here. And I'll see you again next week, where we have Scott Pollock on, who is the founder of Fernio and now heads up product at Pavilion, which is a GTM members community. And we're going to talk about how to manage your partner ecosystem like a community. See you then.
Hark now, mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm, so steer. Gather round the partnership's deck.
Scripts command.
Tales from the leaders of the partnership train. So we chant by the podcast glow. Through wearable seats to boxes flow. Dar-o-die. Hoist the sail.